Hello, friends. A few quick words before this episode. I really don't do shows like this too much anymore, just because this information can be extremely difficult to swallow. I'm very skeptical, although I have an extremely open mind. And Brian is great. He gave a great presentation. He's a wonderful person. And I think that there is validity to much of the information that he has presented. Although some of the individuals that he referenced during the presentation, I don't trust at all. But again, I am very open-minded and I am open to new information as it comes along. And I believe that everyone should be able to present their theories and information, and that is what this platform is for. And I want to thank Brian again for presenting this information, and I hope you all enjoy this episode.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Brian Tseng. First, a couple of announcements. Check out our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. It's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, where we feature some of your favorite podcasts. Always be sure to download our podcast episodes directly through Spreaker if you listen through any podcast provider. Also, check out the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, available on Tubi and multiple streaming platforms. The Forbidden documentary, Doors of Perception, will be dropping this week and available for you to download your pre-release version for only $5. We'll have that up on Vimeo and our website, and we will keep you updated as to when that'll be available for you. Also, get a Rokfin premium membership. That'll get you access to all our premium content. You go to rokfin.com/FKN+. And we are booking guests for April. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome Brian Tseng. He is co-organizer of the Solar Bee and the 2023 Montauk Adventure Tour. He co-hosts the Disclosure Now YouTube channel, and he was the executive producer for the 2024 Full Disclosure Now conference. Brian, welcome. How you doing?
Wonderful. Happy Saturday. Glad that spring is here and change is in the air and afoot. And, this is my first time on your show, so I'm glad to get to introduce myself to all of your listeners and viewers.
Excellent. Welcome. It's great to have you. Looking forward to this conversation. Your conferences cover many of the same topics I'd covered on the show over the years, and I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on some of these topics like the Secret Space Program, Montauk Project, as well as your work with organizing the Full Disclosure Movement. But before we get into any of this is your first time on, like you said. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and let them know where they can find out more about you.
Thank you. The conference website, because I'm the executive producer of both the 2024 and now upcoming 2025 Full Disclosure Now conference this July in Florida at St. Pete Beach, Florida, the lovely Serrata Beach Resort. We're going to have about 30 plus presenters, a lot of vendors and people over 4 days and nights. And a lot of it, this can all be found at fulldisclosuremovement.org. That's the website. About myself, a lot of my kind of origin testimony comes from my father, Jack Tseng, who began Tseng Labs Inc. out of the basement of our very humble working class immigrant home back in the 80s. And he revolutionized the computer graphics field in the 80s and 90s. He caught the IBM processing side up to the Apple side, where the Apple, it was always more integrated with music and video and all that. IBM was more like the green letters on the screen and word processing. And he pioneered things like overclocking in the graphics chips before they brought it over to the central processing chips. If you've ever heard of the term overclocking, and some of the architecture stuff he did, it advanced the field. Needless to say, it inspired me, seeing like, wow, Dad, I don't see that happening. Around me and my peers, like my father, we're like a rags to riches American dream, family, Chinese American working class family. And that afforded me an excellent education. I got to go to a private school and kind of rub shoulders with like the children of the elite and realize that I didn't fit in, but I was so confused in my early days, trying to figure things out. It allowed me to go to Occidental College and get a biochemistry degree. And with that, I went briefly into the biotech field. I did not like it, but it also prepared me to be a medical organizer and advocate for 8 years, 5 years full-time, 3 years part-time. And I learned how to organize doctors and nurses and farm workers to get people medical care, to stop hospitals from being shut down. And then I got burnt out on that. That was like 2003 to 2011 or 12. I took a couple of years just to chill. And then I went into sales and marketing for solar and selling electric cars for Tesla for a while. And then for Sunrun for solar. And then when the scamdemic kicked in around 2019, 2020, I knew to get out of San Francisco Bay Area. So I relocated to Northern Nevada. I'm a prepper up here with my wife and business partners. And the scamdemic and everyone rolling up their sleeves are 7 out of 10 in a lot of the westernized nations, especially including my own family. My father died from the jabs.
Sorry to hear that.
2 Novembers ago. Yeah, thank you, Chris. It was a stroke and multiple blood clots. And that's what there's a reason why they call them clot shots, because of the spike proteins, among other reasons, and the fibrous clots. But a huge impetus for me became the need for medical beds. And I've been aware through following people with their secret space program and Montauk testimonies and a lot of ET experiencers that medical bed technology, clean energy, anti-gravity, portals, and stargates, that all exists. Okay. And if there's one thing we could really use right now in our society with declining birth rates and all of that, it's medical beds. And I realized that the only way we're ever going to get medical beds and then all the rest is if we have disclosure, and not just this slow drip Pentagon BS disclosure, but really, bottom up, top down, good, the bad, the ugly, full disclosure, televised military tribunals, reparations to all the victims and survivors, changes in all the policies and all of that. And so that brings us to the full disclosure movement. And then my work, began really in earnest. Just kind of getting into the community was like 2022, after I had my first Facebook account banned for disinformation, trying to warn everybody, don't take it, don't roll up your sleeves, please God, don't do it. And that really depressed me for a couple of years, like, wow, there goes all my lifelong contacts, going from like my first high school girlfriends, and watching, being in touch with them and buddies from boarding school and college and all of this, to like gone. Well, when I decided to redo my Facebook account, I entered into the sword collector community and the disclosure, like secret space program X-Files community. And I friended Sean Bond of the Psionic League, psionicleague.com. He's very well known in the community. He's secret space program experiencer himself. He has psionic abilities, and he puts them to good use. And you know, I consulted with him and got introduced to a lot of people in the community. I met James Rink of SuperSoldierTalk.com, among others. He and other people who were survivors of the Montauk Project wanted to put together for the 80th anniversary of the Philadelphia experiment, which was August 12th, 1943. They wanted to do, he and I co-organized the 2023 Montauk Adventure Tour. And this was to rally together survivors of the Montauk Project for the 80th anniversary of the Philadelphia experiment, which is very interrelated to the Montauk Project, over on the east end of Long Island, New York State, where you've got Camp Hero Army Base, where what's popularly known as the Montauk Project took place, but it was really, the military code name was Project Phoenix. And then they also had closely related Project Ibis. And Montauk really kind of encompassed a bunch of sub-projects in time and space and telepathy, mind control, ET contact, and all sorts of shenanigans. And a lot of this is depicted in the very Hollywoodized, kittyized, whitewashed version that you see on Stranger Things, the Netflix show. And to me and many others in the community, it's a supreme irony that here's this TV show and streaming platform making billions of dollars or whatever off of this, and they don't give any real acknowledgement to the survivors. And in fact, the name of the show was supposed to be the Montauk Project, but they were made to change it, and that's why it's Stranger Things.
Right on. Well, you mentioned the Montauk Project a few times. Maybe we should start there. You work with a lot of whistleblowers who have been involved with some of these projects, and in my opinion, the whistleblower testimony is the closest we'll get to the answers to most of these questions that are presented about these topics. As it relates to the Montauk Project, tell us a little bit about how you really got involved with this research, some of the people who are whistleblowers that you worked with, and some of the most profound information that you've learned about it. Before that, though, for those that may not be familiar, tell us a little bit more about what the Montauk Project was.
It was the U.S. Military and deep state trying to catch up to the World War II Nazis in Germany, who already had a head start thanks to Maria Orsic and the Vril Damen getting telepathic messages from ETs from Aldebaran, basically giving them plans for how to build UFOs known as a Hanabu. Those are the Nazi UFOs of like the Iron Cross and the Panzer tank turret on top of the standard UFO, the Billy Myers type, Palladian type discoidal craft, and then Hitler's Bell or Die Glocken, and the Nazis, because of this technology, towards the end of World War II, they didn't have the manufacturing capacity and the understanding, much less mastery of the technology, to utilize it to turn the tides overtly of World War II in their favor. But they retreated through the rat lines to Argentina and South America and Antarctica to New Schwabenland, their base down there, or they had a colony down there and a base. I forget, it's 217 or 211. 219, something like that. And they did regroup there to the point that by 1952 they were flying over Washington D.C. In Luftwaffe formations, but with but as UFOs, and they couldn't be shot down. And that was basically when it became more, at least among the real world governing bodies, understood that the Nazis won World War II. And we've been under really the Fourth Reich ever since. And they've since gone off world. You've got the Nachtwaffen and Dark Fleet type elements. And then you've got also what the Nazi Germans, they themselves call the bankers in space. That's the interplanetary corporate conglomerate. And then they're based a lot on Mars. And so that's where you start hearing people talk about Mars Defense Force. And the Montauk Project, it's kind of like a springboard to all of that, because it was taking primarily children, I'm sad to say, because children have unfortunately, the Nazi scientists with Operation Paperclip and the MK Ultra experimentation discovered that children have much more powerful psionic abilities, and they're much more malleable, so you can program them much more easily and to do the things that you couldn't take an adult person and try to get the same effect. It just wouldn't work. And they were strapping them into something known as the Montauk trip chair. This is in an underground sub-level there at Camp Hero on the east end of Long Island, New York. They would strap children in his chair. This chair was apparently a recovered UFO pilot's chair from it might have been a Roswell crash site. There were apparently like 2 or 3, because it might have been a craft like skipped. And they recovered this from the wreckage. And people in the know say that the ETs, whether the Greys, Draconians, Pleiadians, whomever, they don't have like a stick and rudder or a yoke and a throttle piloting like the UFO, their spacecraft. They telepathically interface with the ship, become more one with the ship, and then they operate it that way. And the chair for this craft is one of these things that magnifies telepathic ability. And in this case, instead of having it interface with like a UFO to fly around, they were having children interface with a chair, while they had people like sick bastards like Preston Nichols, who is he's very whitewashed. His role in the Peter Moon series of the Montauk Chronicles, in the author who wrote that series, per the testimony of Preston Nichols, Al Bielek, Stuart Sverdlow, and a gentleman, one of his aliases was Duncan Cameron. And they would beam like frequencies and sound and light and drug up the kids. They would satanically ritually abuse them, and they would traumatize them, put them into altered states, then put them into the chair with like kind of like what you see depicted in Stranger Things, like not like a wig, but a hairnet with electrodes all over it. So, okay. And, Chris Lettere and so many people recount being in this chair, and they would have the kids, what Arkeem Ra, who's a personal friend and survivor of the Montauk Project, friend of mine, but, and he's got excellent recall. He's going through it a bit right now. So my prayers go out to him. But he testifies that he calls it Montauk 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, pretty much. 1.0 is a messy phase. You're strapping children in, and can the kid open up a portal on the wall, or do they just die in the chair? Or, okay, now that some kids can open up a portal in the wall to interesting places, let's send some kids through those portals and see how they do. Okay, and these children were literally they weren't treated as human beings. They were treated as test subjects, literally rats. Okay, they were confined to dog cages, at least stacked 2 high, if not 3 high, where like they would be wearing very little, like tidy whities, underoos type clothing, fed very poor food, like dog food. The people like Preston Nichols, they had it set up so that they had like car batteries and jumper cables, so that they could just like hook it up to the cages and like zap all the kids. Okay, and so people have memories of like being shocked and like peeing either on the kid below them or being peed on, because their bladders involuntarily let go because they're being zapped so
Now,
bad.
let me ask you, the purpose of this torture and trauma was to essentially unlock potential for these kids' psychic abilities. Is that right?
Yes, but they didn't ever have to do it like that. You have to understand it's like Nazi, evil, Luciferian, Baphomet worshipping scientists and deep state or occultists running a program the way they wanted to run it. And yeah, sure, you take children and train the children to their maximum potential, but you have to MK ultra them and split them into alters. And there are people who enjoy doing that. They're little Luciferian pedophiles. They're the ones who are going to be put on televised tribunal and dealt with, publicly, because the world needs to know. It's worse than what they uncovered at the end of World War II with the very, whitewashed Nuremberg tribunals.
Mm-hmm. Why is it, do you think, that the individuals that have been subjected to these programs, it seems like most of them eventually are able to recall a lot of these memories? Could it be possible that they have implanted memories of some sort, that what they are remembering is some sort of a screen memory?
Well, you're going to have mixtures of that, because if you've been taken on a 20 and back, or you've been multiple times, then you've been subjected to screen memories, memory erasures, and then real memories that you're kind of sort of recalling. And as time goes by and people grow older, that programming begins to break down. That stuff that you were programmed or indoctrinated with all the LSD and other chemicals and techniques and mind control, that those messages don't make sense so much anymore when you're a more sovereign thinking 40 or 50-year-old human being who can think for yourself. You've been through your own life experiences. You're no longer the programmed child who's in a cage, struggling to survive on a day-to-day basis, being actively mind controlled, tortured, abused, and that includes sexual abuse. And so other reasons are around the 2012 period, 2011, post 2001 was like, for me, it was around 2003, 4, like there's gradual stages of awakening that I was in, when I realized 9/11 was totally set up, and 2 planes don't cause 3 buildings, metal skyscrapers to collapse and free fall. To, the scamdemic was a huge awakening. All my years organizing physicians and patients to fight for medical care and ethics in medicine, those were all eye-opening to me. Living in Los Angeles for 7 years and getting to see the sets and the actors and actresses come in for like Beverly Hills 90210, where they filmed it at Occidental College while I was there. We were California University. I'm like, these actors are like 30 and 40 years old, pretending to be 19 and 21-year-olds. This is so fake and manufactured. And then previous to going to Occidental, because my father had done so well with Tseng Labs, I got my parents to gift me with the trip of a lifetime to Australia for 6 weeks, and on a cultural exchange. And my Australian friends and that I met down there, they're all like worshiping this stupid show, Beverly Hills 90210. I knew it was a joke. I never watched it. And then I'm a freshman at Occidental, and they're filming the college years there. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is even lamer, because I'm seeing in real time, in real life, what these people around the world idolize and how fake it is. So there's a lot of that. And then since then, I met so many people. You talk about how, like, the eyewitness testimony, it's not just that. You've got Gary McKinnon, who hacked the Solar Warden files back in the day. The US government wanted to extradite him from the UK. Okay. You've got William Tompkins, who wrote Selected by Extraterrestrials, who had pretty much a photographic eidetic memory, who's very well documented. You've got Doris Neely of the CIA, who was one of their archivists, who had a very near eidetic memory, or has, she's still around, and who got to see a lot of the files, a lot of the people in the secret space programs before her house was burned down. Just as a lot of this was becoming public, her house literally burnt down with all of these files in them because she had backups, and now those are gone. You've got remote viewers like the Farsight Institute, who have 5 very skilled remote viewers under Dr. Courtney Brown at the Farsight Institute on a blind scientific remote basis, doing independent, like 1.5 hour remote viewing sessions, confirming Tony Rodriguez's account, Series Colony Cavalier, which is a recounting of his own kidnapping through a 20 and back program into the secret space programs. So there's a lot of places. And then you've got, what I call ufology 2.0 now. Not only is it a lot harder for the other side to hunt us down and silence us and neutralize us and all that, but now us researchers and experiencers and survivors, we're able to get together and say, hey, you do remote viewing and you're a psychic medium and you're in contact with Sasquatch and you're in contact with a positively oriented draconian, alpha draconian reptilian queen, or a more positive one. Maybe we should like pool our resources and our knowledge. And then I'm going to be launching an online platform soon and other projects with amazing teams of people to really bring all of this forward in an unfiltered, unfettered way without any of this limited hangout crap.
Right on. There's a couple of things that I want to explore. You mentioned the 20 and back program and the secret space program. And this is where it becomes difficult for many to believe in some of the things that are being presented. I myself am very skeptical about a lot of the information, mainly because of what you said yourself, that this is a mix of screen memories, and it might be impossible for a person to decipher what is real and what is not real during those experiences. Now, I think that the secret space program and some of the quote-unquote whistleblowers that have come out and presented this have been planted in the community intentionally.
Cory Good.
Exactly. People like Cory
Okay.
Good. And this really taints everything, and it muddies the waters, and it makes it easier for people to dismiss everything that they hear. And I am not one of those people. I don't dismiss everything, although I am very skeptical about some of the information. I wonder if these people, who I definitely believe have been subjected to these programs, have been subjected to horrific experiments and trauma, but to the extent of what they're actually experiencing, I couldn't tell you, and I'm not sure if anyone could. But the fact that these organizations have the ability to completely immerse someone's consciousness into a different reality, have them experience that and remember it as if it were real, really makes it difficult to navigate that. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me speak to that. So for one, when you've got the remote viewers doing it independently and then different groups, that helps get past the screen memory thing. Okay. Because now you're having people remote viewing situations that are, like if they're remote viewing, the target is like what really happened at Montauk with the Montauk chair in this year, what's a significant event, and they tune into that. And they're showing a kid in a chair, opening up portals and other kids being thrown through the portal or similar. Well, then, I'd say, well, that's a data point or multiple, whatever data from the remote viewing you get. You have to take that separate from this whole screen.
And the remote viewers, they are not presented with the information beforehand. They are going in blind, correct?
Zero, blind. They're literally given. Dr. Brown will take maybe the subject matter, like the topic, write it on a slip of paper, stick it in an envelope, give that envelope a random H5659B. Okay, team, your target this week is that's your, and each they go off and they do their sessions and they film it all. It's all for public scrutiny. A lot of it's for free on YouTube, and then they've got farsightprime.com, which is behind their paywall, which is worth every cent because their work should be supported. And like who's expected to work hours and hours and hours every month for free, right? And they're advancing humanity. So so dollar for dollar, pound for pound, they're amazing. Then you've got my own personal researcher experiences when I was at Montauk with like 20 other people, many of them survivors with recall. I was there at the parking lot right by the lighthouse. There's an iconic lighthouse at Montauk Point there. And there's like a cliff with like a drop off of like 40 to 50 feet. I don't know how high, but high enough you don't want to fall off it. And as we were there, we're walking, a lot of the people in our group, they were all sharing their own recalls with each other of how they all did flying lessons right there at that spot. What they would do is they would be brought out there late at night, the children by the people, the guards running the project, people like Al Bielek and Preston Nichols, and they would be told to run off the cliff and fly like Peter Pan. And some of them fell and had to be dragged back to base and thrown into the regen tank to have their legs all mended, okay, because they had a regen tank there. And then others would fly and laugh, and it was so fun, and they remember running out and doing like a loop-the-loop and running back, okay? Also, while we're there in that parking lot, Arkeem Ra, he turned to Chastity Campbell, not to be confused with Christy Campbell. She's another friend in Montauk survivor, that she was not physically with us there on that trip, but Chastity Campbell was, and there's no relation between Chastity and Christy. And Arkeem, he's a couple years older than Chastity in the here and now. And he turns to her and he says, do you remember when we were children and you just gotten kidnapped and brought to Montauk and we're in the cages and you were crying about how your parents were going to come and rescue you and they were going to take you out of there. And because Arkeem is saying, I'd been there like several years longer. I'd been jaded. I'd been beat down. I'd been tortured. I'd been raped. I was in a really nasty mood, and I was saying, you're not. You're never going to get out. They're never going to find you, just like they're never going to find any of us. We're all stuck here. We're going to die here. No one cares. And he made her cry, and he's talking to her now as adults, and he's crying and she's crying. Makes me cry. And he's like, do you remember when I was doing that to you? And she's like, yeah. And they hugged each other. And it's like, they're not faking that. That's not like a screen memory the other side gave them. You can have remote viewers remote view that. And they're like, yeah, that happened. That's
well, like I said, I'm
at.
definitely sure that these tangible events happen, the torture, the experimentation. What I'm really alluding to is the 20 and back program. Could it be possible that that is some sort of simulation that they are being put through?
It's possible, but none of it fits because you have to understand the how and the why of the 20 and back program. So 20 and back programs aren't to put people through simulations so that they get weird flashbacks 30 years later. That's not why. The 20 and backs are because the military, the programs, they target people of interest. We're called starseeds, light workers, people who in our past life incarnations have lived out in Orion or Lyra or the Pleiades or Sirius. And because of that, we have different abilities. So one of the most sought after abilities is the ability to open up portals. That's like one of the A top abilities that they want. Because you can open up a portal, like in Doctor Strange, like you can open up a portal to anywhere. That's like the most powerful thing, going anywhere you want. Okay. You can attack your enemies, and take stuff, or go cool places, and escape wherever you want. So that was the most powerful ability, and it kind of went down from there to people who could psionically mind control other people, or cause other people to die. And so the 20 and backs is utilizing time travel, consciousness transfer, and clone
Now,
bodies. Those are the main three technologies that they utilize. And of course, anyone obviously should be skeptical, like, wow, humans, it's not like we invented that. No one who has that. This isn't human level technology, folks. Just like how you see UFOs and stuff flying now are all around us in the skies worldwide, and that doing stuff, that assuming it's not all Project Bluebeam, just like holographic projections in the air. You know, we're dealing with ET civilizations and species that are millions of years old. They have this technology.
yeah.
And so all it is being misapplied in human hands. And when it sounds so cliche in the spiritual or ascension community, when we say time doesn't exist, we are all one, everywhere is connected, we are all connected. Well, if you really believe time and space are all one, and it's all interconnected, and doesn't really exist as like a separate thing, except for how we understand it, then you can understand that, yes, time travel is possible. And then when you get into the testimonies of these people, that they're all overlapping and corroborating, and they're multi-hours long, and you weed out the Cory Goods. Let me tell you one thing about Cory Good. When Cory Good and David Wilcock, they joke, haha, we were talking about these blue avian ETs, and we're making fun of everyone for believing in blue chickens. Well, guess what? There really are blue avian ET species. And yeah, you can make fun and clown on them and call them blue chickens all you want, but there are blue avian ET species out there.
To help the audience understand, if they're not familiar with what the 20 and Back program is, basically these individuals, somehow their consciousness is either transported or placed into supposedly a cloned version of themselves on a different planet or in a different realm, and they then carry out missions using that cloned body. And this, again, is where it becomes difficult for people, but would you add anything to what that experience is?
I mean, that essentially, that's basically what it is they identify you generally as a child who has interesting abilities. They will come like in the middle of an evening at a certain time, and they'll take your consciousness and transfer out, or they'll take your original body, and they basically kidnap you, and then they use you for the next 20 years. And then after they've used you, using you includes not just your physical body and mind that you're in, but again, taking out your consciousness, putting it into an alternate body, kind of like in the movie Avatar, exactly like what's depicted in Avatar. Okay, and James Cameron does have a lot of disclosure in a lot of his films, by the way. And then after 20 years of service, they erase your memories, they take your consciousness, transfer it back in your original body, and basically you wake up the next day and you're kind of none the wiser, except things feel different. And then that's where all these people are testifying, like what Tony Rodriguez does, and so many other people. Daryl James, he got into the 20 and Back program differently. Instead of being kidnapped as a child, he went in through the Navy. And the Navy and the Air Force are very much linked to the programs. The Navy is more the secret space program, like the space fleet aspects, and the Air Force is more the time travel aspects. And there are reasons for that. And really, it's all about slave labor, because if you can take somebody, traumatize them, mind control them, create multiple alters of them, take each of those alters as a soul fragment and put them into a different clone body, okay, you can now have what's literally known as a clone army. off the enslaved fragments of consciousness off of one person if they are that powerful a being. And we humans at our unlocked full potential are incredibly, amazingly powerful. And that's a huge reason why we've always been exploited, whether by the Anunnaki or Jahami to mine gold, or the Draco Orion Empire before them and on top of them.
The individuals involved with these programs, talk a little bit about how they're selected. Is this multi-generational? It seems that a lot of people have close relatives, family members, friends that are involved with high-level military positions. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so that's one pathway. Is you've got Freemasons, secret society type people, military in your family. You're automatically on, like, you know, the perusing list, where they're kind of scanning you because you're being, you're a new potential test subject or asset being brought up in, the known bloodline families or secret societies, or, and then the military is very linked to that because it's one of the power structures that they want to control. Then you've got other people who are like star seeds, who they are incarnated here through something known as the Starseed Exchange Program, through like the Galactic Federation types. And they're incarnating people from their own societies and species down here as humans to literally give them skin in the game. So these are a lot of the ET experiencers who are on the more positive side, okay, at first. But then once I'll give you an example. Christy May Wixon is a Katai starseed. The Katai are, I believe they're from the Pleiades or Lyra. I was Lyra and the Pleiades. I mix up which one they're from, but they're tiger people, tiger humanoids, versus the Irma, where they're more lion people. Okay, like Thundercats, kind of the tiger people. And the Katai, she's from them, and she's been visited by them. So they'll send like a craft to her as a child, beam her up or portal her through the wall up into the craft to scan her, maybe put an implant into her to basically better monitor her in her human body against all the nasty pollution and crap they're putting in her food and in the air and the water. Okay, so that would be considered a positive visitation. Well, that visitation, that can be tracked by the secret space programs and the negative cabal. They've got remote viewers and psychics that can dial into that. The secret space program, they have technology to track things like gamma ray bursts and ion trails for like craft coming in. That's where they're shooting, people are like, oh, well, I find it so hard to believe that an advanced species could fly or portal all the way here to Earth, and then supposedly humans, like with our technology, can shoot those craft down. Well, yeah, if our secret space programs are given low-level Draco weaponization technology through the Zeta Reticulum Greys, then sure, we might have some technology to shoot craft out of the sky. Not only that, her Audrey Walters, okay, who's a contactee of the Galactic Court System and the Galactic Federation, which the Galactic Court System is tied to. If you are a member race of the Galactic Federation and you want to visit Earth, you're not allowed to do it in any craft that has any weapons or defensive technology. You basically get to come here in the equivalent of a pleasure yacht. So like if the Somali pirates, the secret space program equivalent, want to shoot you down, that's your tough noogies. And so that's where you get Clifford Stone and all these people. I forget the grandfather of the DeSteven brothers, Derek and Daniel, not Clifford Stone, but another gentleman. He wrote a book that it was also related to UFO crash recovery called Above Cosmic Clearance. Okay, and that's about the UFO crash recovery programs. So once your Starseed family visits you, not only are they liable to possibly get tracked and shot down, because now like they know, oh, keep an eye on Springfield Avenue, 995 over here. Christy lives there, now the programs, I've identified you as a person of interest. Oh, wow. Who were they visiting? Oh, Christy, the 7-year-old girl. You know, oh, what's it? Oh, she's RH negative. Okay. And then now you can get abducted into the programs. So that's another way, is you're an ET contactee starseed. Other people like Tony Rodriguez, what happened to him was he was going to some like Catholic school or something as a child, and he got into like some argument or fight with like some bratty little kid. Well, that bratty little kid, his father was some high level Illuminati Freemason with ties to the SSP. And that kid pointed Tony Rodriguez as another child out. Hey, that's the kid, get him. Well, that's how Tony got kidnapped, and he was not treated well in the programs. And that's where not only his first book, not science fiction, it's his testimony, Series Colony Cavalier. He's now written a second book, Project Stargate.
One of the other reasons that I have trouble with a lot of this information is because of my changing perspective on UFOs and extraterrestrials. I started out this show mainly talking about paranormal and UFOs, and I had the general perspective that they were coming from different planets. They were very physical beings, and there may be an entire ecosystem of extraterrestrials that inhabit the universe. The more I have done this show, the more people I have, the more testimony that I hear over the years, I've come to lean more towards the possibility that this is more of a phenomena of consciousness, that maybe these beings aren't necessarily physical, but part of the makeup of our reality, and they are real, but not necessarily physical in a sense that the mainstream UFO community believes, but they are more of etheric intelligences, thought forms, egregores that pass through the filter of our perception, and our perception heavily dictates the nature of the experiences we have with them. Although my perspective on this whole topic can change with any new information I receive, and I'm very open-minded to everything, I'd love to hear your perspective on the extraterrestrial phenomena, the reality of it, and where we're at with disclosure, as well as the possible deceptions that we're seeing.
Okay, and that's excellent question, and I can answer all of that. You know, those are basically that's the heart of the movement right there, Chris. First of all, from what you began describing, right, like these physical beings from all places to more of like a mental interdimensional consciousness thing, it's all of that. Mm-hmm. It's all of that and more. You've got Earth at what we generally right now are perceiving as humans at the third density consciousness level, and we're rapidly proceeding is what we refer to as the ascension, okay? From third density consciousness up into fourth density, like that's like the astral, and we want to go really through that to fifth density consciousness. And so that's where you start to talk out levels of densities of existence. The higher the density level of consciousness that you're at, the closer you are to God's source, the more you are you're activated on the astral and on the mental level, telepathy, the ability to transmute your physical form and, you know, open up a portal and shift and go through it to go to another place. So that's like the physical aspects, but transcending the physical. Okay. Because once you get high enough, you're now going from like lower fourth density consciousness of like the negative Draco reptilians to more positively oriented beings. And they're not all positive at the fifth density. At each density of consciousness, you've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. But different beings exist at different levels of consciousness and density. And that's why certain ETs, when we see their craft, for example, you see it looks like a blob of light. Okay, why is that? Well, that's most likely a higher density craft, and you're not looking directly at the ship itself, the skin of the ship, because it's a higher density. What we're really seeing is we're seeing the shadow of the ship interlining with our reality. But because it's a higher density craft, instead of being a dark shadow, it's a light shadow. And that's why you'll see a lot of these UFO videos, and it literally looks like bad CGI where someone's like shining a flashlight at the camera, and you're like, what is that? It's just a blob of light. Yeah, you're seeing the light shadow of a higher dimensional craft.
Right on.
Okay. But then you've got people who are visited by more occult spiritual beings like a jinn or a demon or a more positive angelic being. And you're like, well, is that an ET? Like, no, because it didn't grow up on a planet and like doesn't eat food and doesn't have to go to the bathroom, but it is a being. Yeah, it's living at a higher realm or a different realm of consciousness or being or density, and it's interacting with us. But then you've also got your run-of-the-mill ETs that, yeah, they grew up on a planet named Serpo. They're biomechanical grays. They're depicted in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And unlike what it says in the leaked supposed official document, we have this ongoing exchange program with them, not just like 10 personnel once 40 years ago.
Let's get into what we're experiencing now with quote unquote disclosure and the events that have been unfolding over the past few years. There are many that are of the belief that we are entering a very important era, and it is very obvious that many people are becoming aware of a lot more, and there is this awakening, for lack of a better word. There's also some very unusual things that have unfolded over the past few years that we have not seen in our lifetime, as well as the admittance of the existence of UFOs and the media coverage, the congressional hearings, everything that we're seeing right now. But again, because of my current perspective, I don't trust a lot of the mainstream information that does come out, and I'm very skeptical about a lot of it. But I'm very fascinated to see how everything is unfolding and the reaction to it. What are your thoughts about what is happening and what's really behind it?
So the mainstream, it's only going to confuse you because a perfect example of this is last year, at the beginning of the year, getting ready to throw my first conference, the 2024 Full Disclosure Now conference, I told my mother and my one brother, Jason, hey, Mom, Jason, I'm going to be throwing a UFO conference in Florida in a few months. And Jason, he walked away, throwing up his hand, UFO conference, like, that's my fruitcake brother, whatever, you know. And then that was the beginning of last year, 2024. Before the end of it, November 13th, during an ET board meeting done by the Farsight Institute under Dr. Courtney Brown, they were told by their Galactic Federation ET contacts that there were going to be worldwide sightings of craft, spaceships, basically UFO craft in the skies. November 15th, they published that. They put it up on their website and on YouTube. November 18th, we indeed had worldwide sightings. What did the government and the lamestream media do? They focused in on drones in New Jersey. Okay. And not only that, the negative ETs and negative secret space program, they did indeed fly some drones and also craft of a higher technological nature than like drones, like as we know them, like your DJI drones with batteries. And we're spraying people and animals and making them sick. And what's really happening right now is the Galactic Federation has enough of us starseeds down here on Earth who are awake, trying to wake up everyone else, that it wasn't a violation of the Prime Directive for them to now show up in our skies in as unmenacing a manner as possible. They're just going to show up, hover, wink back at us. Maybe if we telepathically ask them to move or dance, they'll do a little dance for us and do neat formations. I know people who they're doing this right now. You know, everyone from Roger Ray to Lily Nova. You know, Roger Ray is he's a Native American on the Four Corners area, the Four Nations, Four Corners area of the Navajo Nation. Sorry, calling in craft all the time, and he films it, and he puts it on YouTube. But it's the negative space program, negative ETs. It's the equivalent of like, I don't know. This is like kind of a stupid current political example, but let's say there's like all these people, they love Trump, and they get together boats and yachts, and they decide to have together a yachting boating party, and they're all waving their Trump flags, okay, having a good old time. And then there are people who they hate Trump. They've got Trump derangement disorder, whatever you want to call it. So they get their own speedboat. They put a Trump flag on the back, and then they speedboat through the yachting party that everyone else is having a good time at, shooting flare guns at each other, throwing beer bottles and cans at everyone else. Okay. And then the lamestream media comes in, and then they film this, you know, these people with this Trump flag, and they like, look at this, look what a crap show this is. This is a Trump people, like, blah. And it's like, was that really, you know, representative of like what the one group that was there to party in the first place and have a good time? When these spoilers came along, and then the lamestream media focuses on that, is that what's really going on? Or is there really something going on, but it's not that? It's something of much greater import. But if you were to believe these other people, it's drones in New Jersey. Okay. And the deal is the Galactic Federation, you know, this whole time they've been interfering with their nuclear sites. The reason why is it's not a violation of the Prime Directive for them to interfere with our nukes, because when we detonate nukes, that tears holes interdimensionally, which messes with their interests.
So what should we be expecting over the next few years with the rollout of this disclosure?
It's up to us, Chris. By having me on your platform talking the gospel of disclosure and just explaining what you've been doing with Forbidden Knowledge News, we're waking up the people who, you can call them normies, whatever you want to say. I say it's the people who are really stuck in this third density distorted projection, and helping to wake them up to the fourth and fifth density understanding of reality. Things like reincarnation, ET life, angels and demons, telepathic abilities, you know, things like the telepathy tapes, explaining how children with autism are telepathically communicating with each other and other beings. And this is clinically proven. Even the most hardened skeptics are like being like, their jaws are hitting the floor. They're like, this is real, you know, and elevating people's understanding so that there are positive brothers and sisters, they can reveal themselves more and more, which then helps to force disclosure down here and more as we are the disclosure. And the more we do that work, the more we hasten the day that we have medical beds available in every major city for everybody. We have clean energy, we have replicators, and then eventually anti-gravity, and then access in a very controlled fashion to portals.
Right on. So to close out, tell us a little bit more about what you're involved with the conferences, and if you have anything upcoming.
Yeah. You know, you want me to screen share?
Sure,
I can pull up the, I'll pull up the conference website here.
There you go.
You know, and I'd love to be back and do screen sharing, because like kind of seeing a lot of the images will help, you know, and documents. It'll really help to show. So the Full Disclosure Now conference is this July 15th to 20th, because we also have a sister event, the Day of Being Beach event, which is it's basically a weekend barbecue gathering very close to where we're holding the conference at the lovely Serrata Beach Resort. And this first year, you know, we had amazing people on the main galactic stage, as well as a second stage. We had vendors, we had special event dinners, We had a lot of people just hanging out together on the beach, St. Pete Beach. You're right there on the water. Like you walk from out of the hotel onto the sand. Sorry about that. And onto the beach. And we're going to have 30 plus presenters. Many of them are people like Miles Johnston, who's been exposing all this for decades, going back to like Black Goo, Max Spears, James Casbolt with the Basis Project over in the UK. He was trying to make the BBC cool, but he was way too cool for them, you know, and not one of their ilk. So, you know, he's a legend. James Bartley is flying all the way from Australia. He is an experiencer, and he's like a world expert, especially on reptilian beings. And he has active reptilian ET contacts that he can telepathically interface with. Yemi Genet of the Farsight Institute, and we're also hoping to get Aziz Brown, that's Dr. Brown's son, and he's also a lead researcher there at Farsight, to come join us. You know, Brad Olson will be there. He's done a lot of research on the occult and Antarctica and the secret space programs. Sean Bond and Isha, they were just down in Mexico. He's of the Psionic League.com. We started off with, he was one of my first introductions to the community. He and Isha, they went down recently to, I believe, the Huejuelas region of Mexico with Gustavo Medrano. He's another presenter from last year. And they basically dug up more ET artifacts, like this is one of them, or the type, not what they dug up, but these are some of these Huejula stones. These are carbon dated to anywhere from 3,000 to 18,000 years old, and they have very interesting properties. And they're going to be displaying some and talking about some recent ones that they found. They found more in one weekend than a lot of these villagers will find. Like they found like 10 in a weekend, when usually like a bunch of the villagers digging alone, they'll find 3. But because they were psychically told where to dig, they dug up a ton of stuff, and they're going to be sharing that. Christopher Jacobs and Joanna Michaels, they are in telepathic communication with a lot of the Sasquatch beings, also known as the forest people. So how they like to colloquially refer to themselves. Penny Bradley is a secret space program veteran. She has amazing recall. She's done multi-hour presentations, incredibly detailed. And then we consider her, or I do, the grandma bear of the secret space program community. She's a god grandmother to my own and only one and only daughter. Daniel Brinkley, he's had like 4 near-death experiences, and he's a combat vet, so he's seen a lot, and he speaks to that. Jessica, the Cryptid Huntress, she's a foremost civilian remote viewer, and she's a Bigfoot researcher, Dogman researcher, and she's collaborated with a lot of us to target a lot of people's own experiences on a blind remote view basis. We'll give her she'll have like a stack, so it'll come up randomly. She'll generate the data, and then we'll do shows to share the data and then the perspective of the people who are more expert and intimately, know about this stuff. So this is all to be found at fulldisclosuremovement.org. Tickets are still early bird. Pricing goes up slightly the closer we get to the conference. Individual tickets are only $455 for 4 days and nights on 2 stages at a premier Florida resort at St. Pete Beach. And we also have couples tickets, which is great. You buy 2 at a time, you get a deal. We're soon to have special event dinner tickets coming up each night of the event, of the 4 nights. We have an awesome, amazing, hilarious special event dinner. Like we're wearing costumes. This was like the end of one of them. And, it's a great time. Fulldisclosuremovement.org.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I highly encourage everyone to go check out your conferences. And until next time, everyone, have a wonderful evening. We will talk again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then.